Well, happening right now, march and a rally plan for City Hall. Let's take a live look. Organized Labour is joining Occupy Toronto activists in an effort to keep the movement alive. Now, you can see St. James Park fairly empty. That's because they left about 20 minutes ago. So quite a few of them marched along King Street towards the financial district. Here we are in the financial district at the TSX headquarters. Now, we're told that a number of them are showing up here, possibly about 300, while others turn north on Bay Street to make their way up towards City Hall. So, and there they are right there. You can see the Occupy movement coming down York Street right now. Many carrying union flags, so this is fronted by the Ontario Federation of Labour, making their way over to the Toronto Stock Exchange, blocking traffic. They are on the road and they are moving towards the Toronto Stock Exchange, where they are planning, I guess, a short rally that was unscheduled. Their plan was to originally head straight to City Hall and hold a noon-hour rally there. They are expecting a couple hundred. We've been told maybe 300 or 400. And this is not only the Ontario Federation of Labour, this is also members of Occupy Toronto, Occupy Ottawa, and Occupy London. So right now they have turned now towards King Street. They are on King Street and heading to the Toronto Stock Exchange, we believe, where they will hold a rally. Because there are so many of them, they will be blocking the road here, so you can expect some traffic delays in the area as well. Any transit moving through the area will also be blocked. You can see right in the middle Sid Ryan with his hands in the air. He is leading this march. He is the president of the Ontario Federation of Labour. They are holding signs saying, "Open your eyes." What they want to tell people right now is that, you know, although they were forced to clear out of St. James Park, the Occupy movement is still very much alive. So they brought their message to Bay Street, and they want everyone in the financial district and the towers to hear them and let them know that, you know, even though they were forced to clear out their tents and move elsewhere, they're still very much around and their message is still worth listening to. They have been backed by the unions for quite a few weeks now. The biggest rallies have always involved the unions. So right now we see many unions as part of the Ontario Federation of Labour backing the Occupy Toronto movement. We also know that the Exchange Tower, which houses the Toronto Stock Exchange, has locked its doors as this protest came through. This is a precaution, because we know in the past, at least maybe week 2 of the Occupy Toronto movement, when union members also joined the rally, they held a massive protest here in the financial district, and about 5 Occupy Toronto members were actually able to make their way inside a bank and occupy that bank for about 45 minutes to an hour until they negotiated with police and left peacefully. So these situations are very fluid. We don't know how it's going to unfold, but let's bring in our Andrew Crystal, who is live. Andrew, are you with this protest?
Yes, I am. I want you to know what's going on today. Union organizers are saying to me they don't want the St. James Park or the Occupy Toronto protest to lose any momentum whatsoever. They want to strike while this iron is still hot. As a matter of fact, St. James Park doesn't look much different than it has, except for the absence of tents. Today you're seeing activity at the TSX, where Occupy Toronto protesters are descending upon the belly of the beast, as they call it, the financial district and the TSX. Union folks are about 2 to 1 versus the Occupy Toronto folks. But it's very important to say labor officials that they co-opt some of this movement and utilize this energy for the labor movement. They see the labor movement and the Occupy Toronto movement as consonant. They see their goals as similar, redistribution of wealth and overall greater justice for the worker. They see these things as consistent. One of the problems with the Occupy Toronto movement is they don't really want to be labeled, nor are they. Many have spoken to me and are circumspect about joining or appending themselves to any one organization, although they're grateful to have support from Labour, and Labour came in at an important time yesterday, about 12 o'clock, Sid Ryan, etc., or sorry, later in the afternoon, just before the final tent came down. Sid Ryan and some union forces came into the park to show solidarity and to buoy their spirits, which became saddened by the loss of their encampment. But Occupy Toronto protesters, while they join union folks this minute at the TSX, some Occupy Toronto people are, their views are not, according to some, consonant with establishment politics. They say this isn't business as usual. And we saw some anarchist elements in the Occupy Toronto protest yesterday near the end jump on top of the barricade, etc. That was very disappointing to Inspector Meister of the Toronto Police. He said that was his sad moment of the protest. But Occupy Toronto protesters rejecting anarchists, rejecting organized politics, but many of the elements of Occupy Toronto cozying up to organized labor. Who would like to see this organization more politicized? One of the slights against the Occupy Toronto movement, Francis, is that it doesn't have a focus. Labor would like to provide a focus to the Occupy Toronto movement and politicize it. And the action today at the TSX is very symbolic. Both Occupy Toronto and the labor unions believe that it's important to get up off the mat when you've been knocked down, as they felt they were symbolically yesterday. And that's why it's very important for them to show force today, both at St. James Park, down at the financial district that you're looking at now, and later at City Hall, where I will also be following the protesters. They hope to gain momentum from this tactical defeat, and their battle cry is retreat, regroup, and reoccupy. And I'll have more information later about an attempt to occupy Queen's Park after the City Hall protest, which may also include a sit-in and some tents up in Nathan Phillips Square as well. So the Occupy Toronto protest movement trying to get back off the mat from yesterday's tactical defeat. Francis, back to you.
Well, Andrew, it looks like they're on the move again, so this was just a brief stop in front of the Toronto Stock Exchange, or are they just moving in to let the hundreds of others in?
Well, the Twitter universe is alive with other parks that the Occupy Toronto protest movement would like to occupy. One of the strategies is to have smaller groups occupy more parks. They say there's safety in numbers, but there may be safety in a multiplicity of targets for Occupy Toronto. But it's very important that they keep their message alive in the media, despite their conflicted feelings of the media. We know some of the media were vandalized by Occupy Toronto yesterday. I won't get into the specifics of the vandalism. It just makes some of the darker elements of the group happy at the pain of others. But they're not that pleased with the media, no matter what the media does. The media thus far has been, the coverage has, I think, been pretty benign because the Occupy Toronto folks haven't offered any red meat for their detractors. They've been predominantly peaceful, and maybe a thorn in Rob Ford's side, while they're politically opposed to him and have signs to that effect. The Occupy Toronto movement has, for the most part, behaved themselves. They've gone through the court system. They've abided by the court system. None of their arrests were of a violent nature. They peacefully were restrained. They didn't fight back against the police yesterday. So they want to maintain this good order, Francis, in order to win over people. And they told me they're trying to actually solicit stockbrokers who have a heart today. That's one of their hope. They hope to get some of the Bay Street crowd in their suspenders, Frankish-like, in support of them.
You know,
hey, you've got the money, now make some time to make a better world. That's what they're telling Bay Street today.
Okay, so Andrew, I'm interested here in knowing about how they plan to politicize this campaign, which would be, possibly we could see that this happen in Canada faster than it is stateside, but the numbers have always been bolstered by the unions, and whenever they've held huge marches or rally, it's always been backed by the unions. So are the unions now interested in working with them to politicize this message? Because the unions have always aligned themselves with the NDP. So are they moving away from that strategy?
They've also aligned themselves to the Liberals on occasion too. Look, one of the heart of the matter with the Occupy movement is anti-globalization. They see globalization as hollowing out the workforce in Ontario. That's certainly something that you see organized labor saying. They see globalization as really being akin to global labor exploitation, where you go to Mexico with your car factory to exploit $1.50 an hour Mexican labor and then sell the product back to America. That's actually a perversion, technically, of what globalization is supposed to be about. Free trade did not mean exploitation of labor, but that, in effect, is what it is. If you don't believe me, dial the phone when you get to Philippines or India when you're trying to do business. But I digress. But actually, I don't digress. That's one of the things labor has talked about, is exploitation of third world labor, which takes away jobs from Canadians. A lot of these people in the Occupy Toronto protests are underemployed or unemployed. I spoke to one woman yesterday with a BA, and she would just like an okay job. They say you can't have 8 billion people on the planet and have everybody with an MBA. There have to be jobs for regular folks. There have to be decent jobs that pay a decent wage for what they call working family, which is code for working class families. So organized labor has, in Canada, we've adopted some of these principles with regards to universal health care and a social safety net. Of course, in the 90s, welfare was taken back a bit because it was too close to those working full-time for minimum wage, so they wanted to create more of a distinction between those that are working full-time or low-paying job and those actually out of work. So that's how welfare rolls got pulled back in the 90s under Harris. But we will see the politicization of the Occupy Toronto movement with organized labor faster in Canada, probably as a result, analysts tell me, of the general trend of Canada as a center-left power anyway. The United States is a center-right power, so there's more demonization of the Occupy movements, despite the fact they have 40 million unemployed, no middle class to speak of anymore, no universal health care, and no social safety net. So a lot more reasons to be upset if you're an unemployed American than in Canada, but ironically, you'll probably see the fires of Occupy Toronto burn in some political heart faster in this country than in America, Francis.
Now, the organized labor groups are very well versed at how to get their message out there. And, they've rallied, they've protested, they've picketed in the past. They're good at that. Are the actual occupiers taking any notes from their book? We know there's Occupy Toronto, and they're joined now by Occupy Ottawa and Occupy London, who have all been evicted from their camps. So are they taking a page from the union book and maybe changing their movement?
Well, I don't know how to. No one knows. You see, this is one of the issues with Occupy Toronto. It doesn't have a leader. It doesn't have a nucleus. They say that there's strength in that because, no one person can be defeated. It's just a feeling of social injustice and a feeling that things are not working. That's the gist of the Occupy movement. Now, of course, they get their inspiration from Wall Street and all of the awful things that went on in the United States with this subprime mortgage crisis and the liquidity crisis in the United States and the bailout of banks and other organizations where the CEOs of failed organizations get huge paydays. We haven't had that same problem here. The banks in Canada didn't receive a dime because they didn't need to be bailed out. So different situation here. But the net effect of this is concern that the two people work more for less. And these people in Occupy Toronto, often they don't work at all. They are not accepted by conventional labor, or some of them, as I mentioned, are underemployed. Some have BAs and can't get jobs. Some have psychiatric issues. It's a stew of the dispossessed, a stew of people who are unconsoled. So whether or not labor can hitch themselves to this anger, this anxiety, this outrage, that remains to be seen. Sid Ryan says that he's getting inspiration from the Occupy Toronto group, but Occupy Toronto group is a many-headed animal, and whether or not they can corral this beast, they can wrangle it, remains to be seen. But they do have some common themes, some extreme socialist themes that they share together, Francis.
Well, the question also is, I mean, does the Occupy movement in Toronto even want to be led? Because everything that they've demonstrated so far is that there is no one leader, that they speak as a collective. But in order to get your message out there, that seems a bit ineffective.
Well, there were some people looking at the shine on Sid Ryan's shoes, the Ontario Federation of Labour president, say, hey, you're part of the 1%, said one. This is a group that, it's not to be discounted in the fact that there are many intelligent members in its ranks, many people that are plugged in. I mean, this is a group that valued, of all things, a library, when a lot of people, frankly, don't have time to read. Or if they have the time, don't have the inclination. So whether or not this Occupy fringe movement makes it to the mainstream will depend upon the efforts, I think, of organized labor at this point, depending whether or not the Occupy Toronto protesters can, in the spring when it's warmer, decide to reoccupy. But what they're getting from organized labor right now at the TSX, they're getting food, they're getting buses, they're getting hotel rooms. Organized labor has brought Occupy, supported logistically the Occupy Toronto or Occupy Ontario protesters from all over, from London, Woodstock, etc. So whether or not this works, what you are seeing at the TSX today and what you're seeing at Nathan Phillips Square a little later is a new Occupy movement with labor that's far more political, Francis.